It's been a long road, a winding road, and it has not always been a smooth road. In fact, at times it's been damn near impossible to traverse. The end of an era, the last hurrah, one final dance with the UFC on ESPN. And there's but one correct way to proceed. I shall revenge myself in the cruelest way possible, the cruelest way you can imagine. I shall forget it. This is the powwow after the punch out, the post Saturday sit down. It's the Weekend Roundup, episode 80. I wonder why progress looks so much like destruction. To build it up, we gotta burn it down. Like the time has come to pass. 6 damn years have gone so fast. How we doing, everybody? Welcome to the program, and thank you for listening whenever and wherever you may be finding us. My name is Lazybed, and that's no misnomer. I really do be lazy. While lackadaisical about most things, I'm not a slacker when it comes to this program. We are JBR, and we always go for the gusto when we get up in them guts, yo. Ugh. Now, if you could, you probably should make the thumb succumb and send the bell to hell, aka smash that like button and turn on notifications, sub to the channel, take me out to dinner, etc., etc. Now, poetry ain't easy, and neither is podcasting, so let's bring in the conglomerate that cooks like an omelet. Who can do the voodoo that he do? Nobody. Who can outmatch the maestro of meh or dare to compete with the counter casuals? Nobody. He's a fella from the north who buys whiskey from the south. How is life and living in your corner of Yorkshire, Danger Mouse?
Yeah, I'm alive and well. It's still cold in Yorkshire, but not as cold as you guys have got it at the moment. No snow here, at least. And yet the whiskey is in plentiful supply. I have some very nice bottles, but I've just got a beer by the side of me tonight. So yeah, all ready to talk the last fight of the year. Fights of the year.
Maybe we get into the more lackluster fights of this night. Maybe you'll break into the stronger stuff and start hitting the whiskey.
Yeah, you never know.
All right. And an added treat, a last-minute fill-in today, who gets baked off the most super of shake, he do, who is amused when his flour is infused and likes to get bent off a high THC percent. He do, from the frozen tundra of the Midwest, with a big hit in his chest. Are you ripping and running in Rockford, Dave?
No, I'm not ripping or running, but I'm in Rockford, and it's cold as hell. How you guys doing?
Pretty good. It's also cold here in shitty Cleveland, so we got that in common. But yeah, those are the two other members of this three-headed monster. With our powers combined, we are Captain Bleeder. All right, that's enough of my stupid jokes. Yeah, but before we do begin here, before we fully begin anyway, I would like to bring back a segment from a few weeks past. We'll be discussing it periodically throughout the show, I'm sure, but this was officially the final event of the ESPN broadcast rights deal. From here onward, we are off of the E and we're on to the P. We're on to Paramount Plus. It's Paramount Plus from this point forward. So what I want to do is I want to bring back our little segment that we did a couple weeks ago. It's the one word series. So here's the question. And we'll go to you first, Dave, since you're filling in. You're kind of the guest around here, usually behind the scenes. We were there. We were all witness. Here we are 6 years later. With all said and done, what one word would you use to summarize the overall experience of the UFC on ESPN? Give us your one word and tell us why that's your one word.
My one word would be disappointing, and that's my one word because the relationship and the whole it started off so great. It almost kind of reminded me of like a kid going to college on a scholarship that's gifted and really bright and genius, and he does so well at the beginning, and then he kind of gets into partying and just falls apart at the end and doesn't even graduate. And that kind of feels like how ESPN era has gone. The app has just gotten worse and worse. I've complained about it a lot, and it had so much potential. It really fell off towards the end, and it's just disappointing.
It was disappointing, yeah. And I like that college kid analogy. Kind of reminds me of Jed Meshew and his life in college.
But I will say, while like the ESPN version of it has been disappointing, there's obviously been great fights. Like the highlights package that they showed from the fights over the years last night were just great. And there's a lot of, good times and stuff. But as a service, ESPN disappointing.
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, we'll get into it a little bit more later. We're going to touch on this era, I guess you would call it again, because it is a big deal. It's a big story. 6 years is a fairly long time, and we all spent it invested, with the UFC on ESPN. So, likewise for you, Danger Mouse. I know this is a bit different for you, I believe anyway, because I don't reckon that you were ever an ESPN Plus subscriber. For reasons.
I think
Yeah, I was going to say for reasons that will remain unnamed, but I don't even think that's, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that's the application that's even used over there, ESPN
no,
Plus. So.
all our fights are on TNT.
Yeah, so, all right, well, nevertheless, from a fan and viewing perspective, just the way the fights were presented and promoted, etc., what one word would you use to describe the 6 years that we spent with the UFC on ESPN?
Roller coaster.
Mm.
I would have had a ride, but you said one word again, so.
And why? Why would you say roller coaster?
Just because I'm not going to lie. I threw it up on Grok and asked it to give me a few moments from the era, ESPN era, and of course it started off in 2019, which is the COVID era, and so many of us were locked up in our homes and just unable to do anything much. There was hardly any sport on, and the UFC. Much to many people, especially Luke Thomas's distress, ploughed through it and managed to keep the show going. So they kept us entertained for those 2 years at the very least. Just because there was nothing else to watch, and that was when I started really diving into MMA content. I used to watch like Morning Combat, weighing in, and everything, literally everything that was on at the time. I know that's not directly from ESPN, of course, but it's all part of the experience, if you will.
Mm.
And then there were some fantastic fights. We had Alex Pereira's incredible rise. Not that I cared about it, but we did have Conor McGregor's return. His 42nd TKO of Donald Cowboy Cerrone by bloody shoulder strikes. Yeah, it was just all over the place. We had the Sphere and other little events or big events like that. So yeah, it's with I think the disappointment comes from when we came out of the COVID era and the UFC could have moved away from the apex, and instead they've kind of doubled down on it. Now they seem that they're going to have to move away from it a bit more. So it'll hopefully, as the new era will be more entertaining, less shows at the apex. So yeah, that's why I'd say it's a roller coaster. It's been very much up and down. There have been some horribly disappointing fights and cards, I think. I'm laughing at Grok because he's saying John Jones's heavyweight dominance. Fuck you, Grok, on that one. Heavyweight dominance, my arse. Yeah, so yeah, all over the place. There were some great fights, but as Dave said, there's also been some terrible fights. We've had moments with Dana obviously causing all sorts of trouble by slapping his wife on New Year. Again, I know that's not directly linked to the ESPN era, but yeah,
It's
all over
part
the place.
of it, yeah.
Yeah, I can't put it down. I can't say I've super loved it as a whole over the entire 6 years because there have been boring cards, but yeah, it is what it is.
It's definitely been a roller coaster. I think roller coaster is a good word.
Thank you.
To my word, and I'll just give it ever so brief synopsis, would be probably squandered. Squandered would be my word, because you said it, Mouse. Dave, you brought it up as well. Like there was a time when they were starting out when this thing was red hot, especially during the COVID era when they were the only show in town, and they had all the momentum in the world, and the UFC really took off more than it ever had. Yeah, arguably, I guess. And it feels like they squandered an opportunity to really kind of keep that hot streak going and to keep the product on an upward trajectory. And I'm sure they don't feel that way because they've continued to make money hand over fist and they're more profitable than ever. But the business and of the UFC kind of changed, and it went from the fan being the target audience and the fan being the consumer to the UFC kind of sells itself to uh, cities and big time conglomerates now to try to make as much money as they can. They don't really try to sell themselves to the fans. So it just felt like a squandered opportunity to really take the fight part of the business to the next level. But hey, they're successful, so what the fuck do I know? I mean, and they're making more money than they ever have.
Saying that, I'd love to go back and find some prices for tickets from the early fights in 2019 and compare them to the fights that have taken place this year for ticket prices.
Mm-hmm.
See how much they've gone up.
Oh, I'm sure it's astronomical difference. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we shouldn't probably waste any more time. So I guess it's about time to get into the actual fight stuff, the actual meat of this here episode. And what better way to kick off our discussion of the final ESPN card than to begin with two fellas willing to swing it out on short notice for 10 people in a warehouse. But did they really swing it out? I don't know. I'm not so sure. Lightweights got things started, though, on Saturday night when King Green made the walk for his 52nd career fight to take on the UFC debuting Lance Gibson Jr. And did I say junior? I did. Gibson, the son of former UFC vet Lance Gibson Sr. and the stepson of former Bellator vet Julia Budd. Unfortunately for Lance, there was no favoritism or nepotism here, and despite him coming from an MMA bloodline, he would fall short in a split decision loss to Bobby. Nothing about this fight really stood out too much, not to me anyway. More or less just a standard affair, but maybe the one thing that was remarkable was Green not performing his signature front flip roll into the octagon. They pointed that out on the main card minute last night, and I noticed it too. Perhaps a sign of his age and 40 years old, quickly approaching. Who knows? But Danger Mouse. I don't really know what to talk about when it comes to this fight, and I don't believe that it requires much coverage, but it was the opener for the main card, and you did pick Bobby in our predictions on the MK Discord, so that means we have to at least touch on it. Did anything at all stand out in this fight to you? Does it warrant any remarking?
Well, the commentary team actually mentioned that Bobby hadn't rolled into the cage as he usually did, so everybody was on picking that one up. Yeah, it's weird. Bobby Green or King Green, if you really insist. I did laugh at that because the ref was calling him Bobby. Sanko called him Bobby several times. So yeah, I don't think your new name has stuck very well, Mr. Green. So yeah, just doing what he did, what you expect of him, hands down low, talking trash, throwing punches and kicks from weird angles. And again, I have to credit him for a 39-year-old. He looked bloody fast last night. He was pushing Gibson back for most of the round. I had it down as a very close fight. I thought that Green had done enough to win it, especially with the takedown and the ground and pound at the end of round 3. And he did. He got the split decision. I don't really argue with it. I think AB had it at a round each after the second round, and Aaron Bronstedt is normally on the money with his judging. So yeah, can't see much of it. Well done, Bobby. I'm sure you'll find another guy to frustrate and annoy in the cage soon enough, depending what the UFC has to pay you and how many fights are left on your contract. But yeah, well done, Mr. Green. Can't say anything else.
Yeah, that's a good question. I wonder what kind of money Bobby does make, because he's been around for fucking ever. Like, Jesus Christ. I mean, what is this? This was his 28th fight in the UFC, so he's got to be making some
Jesus.
Loot. Yeah, 28. And that's, like I said, this was his 52nd career fight overall, so a guy that's been fighting forever goes all the way back to the fucking Strikeforce days, obviously has lost a step, and everybody's constantly waiting for the wheels to fall off in every Bobby Green performance, because you said it, everyone knows it. What's Bobby's style? He's relying on the speed. He's relying on his reflexes, hands down, juking and jive and doing his Bobby Green thing. And that's great, and it does work, but we're all always just anticipating the moment where he's finally going to get cracked. And he's been caught a few times, but nobody seems to ever have quite caught him, just perfectly clean, obliterated him, took his head off, and made him regret that style. So he's going to continue doing it, pushing 40 years old. So more all credit to him. And I don't know if this was a multi-fight deal that Lance signed with the UFC, or if this was just a one-off because it was such short notice. Hopefully he does get brought back. This wasn't the most entertaining fight, but he looked decent in there. A tough debut against an awkward style of a Bobby Green. So hopefully they do bring him back. I would like to see him back for at least one more.
Bobby Green gave him plenty of credit at the end of the fight. He was effusive in his praise.
Yeah, you got to be complimentary of someone that comes in there to take on that responsibility at the last second. Anyways, Dave, you were on Team Gibson with many of us, much like myself. Not that I believe you or anyone else really had the strongest lean, but we all went with him, other than Mouse. So what made you pick against Bobby, and any thoughts on the fight? Did you agree with the splitty going Bobby Green's way?
I did agree with the fight going Bobby Green's way. I thought it was fairly clear for Bobby Green. I didn't, but the right guy won, in my opinion. The reason I picked Lance was because Bobby's old. He's chinny. I mean, there's ways out there to beat him, and this kid's a lot younger. He was 9-1. He fought in Bellator against decent competition. And I mean, I expected him just to be super hungry and ready to throw down and just kind of go in there and chin him. Kind of like, Green has been knocked out a few times while winning fights, so I kind of expected Lance to do something like that. And it's like Mouse said, Green moved fast and he looked good. I didn't expect him to still be looking like that, moving like that at 39 years old. I just figured, that it's out there how to beat him, and I figured this young guy was going to do it. And I was more picking against Green than I was picking Lance Gibson Jr. But Green did great. He looked great. Lance Gibson kind of fought into a style that worked really good for Green's style. Not that I blame him, because this was like a real short notice fight, but it really allowed Bobby Green to kind of do his thing, and it was vintage Bobby Green in there last night, carrying his hands as low as he possibly can, and slipping, and I don't know if it's shell defense or what it is, but he's got one of the funnest fight stances and styles in lightweight, and sometimes he gets punished for it, and sometimes he doesn't, and he makes a hell of a fight. Good job, Bobby. I regret not picking you, but I got pretty much every fight wrong last night, so it is what it is.
Bobby did seem pretty confused by the split decision. I think he said something about it even after the fight, and I thought Bobby won it pretty clearly. I didn't think it was like egregious for it to be a split decision, but like you said, the right guy won, and Lance Gibson, he's not going to ever really blow the fucking scene up, but he's all right. So
one thing I should say is the latest disclosed pay for Bobby Green I could find was 2 years ago. Jed Eggerman posted it. It was $150K, and that was UFC 291. So I'm sure he's closer to 200 or more now. Ooh. You guys were talking about his pay, so
yeah,
his latest disclosed pay was 2 years ago, and 150.
Yeah, so that in a win, that puts him up in the
like night's work, is it?
Yeah, that puts him up in like the $400,000 range, not including any bonuses. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. And I can't say for certain, but I'm starting to wonder if the UFC is giving these guys incentive bonuses, because there was a situation on this card where maybe we'll get into it in the best of the rest, but there was two guys who were supposed to be in a slot at one point in the card, and the fight got moved to a later point in the card into the feature prelim spot, and there was some argument and some back and forth over why that was. And I did hear some people saying that it could have been a possible thing with contractual obligations, where maybe that feature prelim spot warranted them more money on some sort of a bonus deal. I don't know, but so it's interesting to think, how much these guys are making at this point. Guys like Bobby Green that have just been around for fucking ever. I mean, he's the old man river of the UFC at this point, one of a dying breed.
Yeah, I've just had a wonderful product idea there. I can't remember what they call them. Those things you guys have them outside tire shops and stores and whatnot. Things that blow around in the wind that have all the arms. One of those with Bobby Green's face and arms on it.
Yeah, the big fucking wacky arm flailing man.
Yeah.
wacky, wavy, flailing arm, inflatable tube man.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of a couple of wacky inflatable tube men, we got a couple more to talk about, because next up is two fantastically fat fuckers who were hugging and slugging, but primarily hugging. Let's hear it for the boys. Former light heavyweight turned heavyweight who gave up on fitness, Kennedy Nzechukwu found himself locked in the cage with the fearsome and feared Marcus Buchecha. Now, John Heft Kennedy, as I've taken to calling him, get it? John Heft Kennedy. He lost his heel to Walter Walker's foot fetish in July during his last go prior to Saturday's bout. Also in July, Big Buchecha famously lost his UFC debut and dignity to Martin Buday in the fight that got Martin cut from the organization despite a win. It's a damn shame. Justice for Martin Buday. But when the two locked limbs at the Apex this weekend, it would be an equally disgraceful and dignity-damning performance. 15 of the longest, sloppiest, sweatiest minutes inside of a cage since that time Roseanne Barr and Rosie O'Donnell had a Hell in a Cell match. Maybe I'm just imagining that. Anyway, since this bout ended, I have washed my eyes out with 3 different types of soap. I went on Weight Watchers, and I watched a jiu-jitsu marathon just so I could remember what a finish looks like. In the end, though, Dave, it would be a second round point deduction from Herb Dean for an eye poke on Kennedy's behalf that would lead to this fight being ruled a unanimous draw. The second draw in as many weeks, which makes this final ESPN show actually a record-setting event. The first time in the modern era of the UFC where fights ended in a draw in consecutive weeks, though not the first time this has happened on consecutive cards. Q Jose Young's reply to me on Twitter right here. We actually had 3 draws on consecutive cards back in 2019, but they were split up by the Thanksgiving break. So technically 2 different things. Either way. Anyways, Dave, talk about anything you want here. You could talk about the fight. You could talk about the draw. You could talk about the pathetic state of the heavyweight division. Whatever you wish, because there's not a lot to discuss on this one.
The thing that I will say about this fight is it was terrible. I mean, it was one of the slower fights of the night. Not the slowest fight of the night, but one of the fights that kind of killed momentum. Sloppy heavyweight nonsense, but I thought Kennedy did enough to win the fight, but with the point deduction, the draw was the right outcome. My biggest takeaway for the fight is kudos to Herb Dean, because I heard that they had a meeting recently that they were supposed to actually start enforcing the rules for taking a point for the eye pokes or whatever, and. Yes. Kennedy clearly,
as reported on Believe You Me.
Yeah, Kennedy clearly had his fingers stretched out, not up, like his fingers were out. And whether or not Marcus used terrible head movement or whatever, that doesn't matter. He had his fingers out, the eye poke. Some people were actually bitching about the point deduction, but I think they were just mad about their bets or something.
Cut the fuck out.
But so it was nice to see him take a point for the first eye poke, and hopefully that's the new norm. And that was like the only takeaway I really have from that fight. It was just a sloppy heavyweight fight. Doesn't really, especially since it's a draw, it doesn't do anything for either fighter. But even if one of them won or lost, doesn't really do anything for him anyway. But nice to see a point get taken. Kudos Herb Dean. Heavyweights suck.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of people saying, just fucking cut the whole division. I think outside of Tom and maybe a small handful of guys, you probably could just fucking cut the whole division. But yeah, man, this was fucking tough. Tough scenes. I think anyone bitching about the eye poke point deduction, just like you said, it's got to be something about them losing a bet, because he was actually warned by Herb briefly in passing during the round. and then he was warned for the finger extension, and then the eye poke did occur. So, if you count the backstage warning and then the brief one in passing in the cage, that was technically the third strike. So I'm all for it, man. They've got to start doing this. But before I pass it to you, Danger Mouse, I just want to point out a couple of things. One, Safe Sayud, man. Fortis MMA, maybe up there with Eric Nixick as far as one of the most extreme cases of a coach going from elite to absolute garbage. At one point, Safe Sayud, along with the Eric Nixicks of the world, he was thought as one of the more technical coaches in the game. One of the guys that gave better instructions, had a better handle on his fighters, basically ran things like a fucking military outfit. And that's why he got the nickname the General. If he's the general, he needs to be demoted because it's been bad lately. Like, Fortis MMA fighters are not doing good. He's not doing well as a coach, and he's completely ruined Kennedy and Nzechukwu, who, when he was at light heavyweight, this was a guy who was huge for the division, had a lot of tools, had a lot of high upside. Now he finds himself here at heavyweight for the last couple of fights. He's now 8-6, I believe it is, in the UFC, or 8-6-1 rather, now with this draw. So I don't know. He needs to turn things around. Safe not doing really well. Two, like Dave pointed out, that wasn't Herb Dean in there last night. That was Herbert. That was Herbert Dean. This was one of Herb's many split personalities, and this one happened to be the personality who had given the recent interview on Believe You Me, where he said the new rule is to enforce the rules. So fighters get to know Herbert Dean, not Herb Dean, because Herbert does not play. And lastly, number three, Buchecha, he's really among the worst BJJ guys that I've ever seen to make the transition into MMA. The killer instinct of a newborn bunny rabbit. Like, how do you have multiple positions where you should be able to finish this fucking fight because it's Kennedy fucking Nzechukwu and you're a world class, like, multiple ADCC gold medal winning jiu-jitsu guy? Like, you got to be able to finish this fight. So just bad scenes all around, and that's my rant over for that. So that leaves you, Mouse. Finally, I'm sure you've been waiting to talk about this glorious fight. Yeah.
Edge of my seat. I managed to write down a whole 5 lines about this.
Well, hold on. Let me tee you up a little more. So you can get your 5 lines really ready. How the mighty have fallen. That was my thought on this altogether. Week after week, card after card, we say the same thing. We're always on here repeating it. Heavyweight MMA is so goddamn pathetic. So do what we always do. Talk about the fight, and really the crux of the situation I want you to touch on is how you feel about that point deduction. Because we were just saying it last week on this very show that if we want these fights to be accurately officiated and judged, then we need to be accepting of draws. So what do you think about this?
Okay. Yeah, I've touched on that. Don't worry about it. Yeah, just a very grappling heavy first round. Buchecha obviously didn't want anything to do with Kennedy's striking, and I can't really blame him. We saw why at the end of the round, because Nzechukwu almost got the finish there. Round 2, we had the eye poke, Herb Dean being tested. I was writing this as I was watching the fight, and I was putting, will he be more aggressive? Will he take a point? It was a terrible foul, and then Herb did indeed take a point. But funnily enough, I'd glanced at the Discord for the first time of the entire day while I was watching this fight, and it kind of spoiled the moment of Herb taking the point, because I realized it was, and I also realized it was going to be a draw because of the tweets that you had posted, Lazy. So yeah. But yeah, outside of Herb taking a point, this was peak apex heavyweight slop, and we end up with the draw, which I don't mind. I can give a rare compliment for Herb to actually doing what he's paid to do, and hopefully his brave first step starts a precedent amongst the rest of the referees. Yeah, I said it last week when we had the draw. If fans want referees to start actually doing their job, we're going to see more draws. Get used to it. And yeah, I have no problems at all. Good decision. Yeah, good job.
Yeah.
Herb ends the year on a high note, which makes a change for him.
Hopefully he carries it over into the new year, and it's not just a one-time thing. But yeah, to close this one out, the response that Jose Young sent back to me was in regards to the 3 draws combined in back-to-back UFC cards in 2019. Those were UFC Fight Night on November 16th, 2019. Paul Craig versus Shogun 1, which ended in a split draw. And then they had the Thanksgiving break. We came back on December 7th, 2019. And Cody Stamann versus Song Yadong ended in majority draw. And Marina Rodriguez versus Cynthia Calvillo also ended in a majority draw on that same card. So this is a very rare occurrence, back-to-back weeks or back-to-back cards to get consecutive draws. But this is something that I'm all for, despite the anticlimactic result, because this just means that we're getting proper refereeing and officiating, and this is what we really want, guys. Isn't this what we want?
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. I agree. All right, well, I think that's about enough time on that fight. So we will move on to the next one, and after that, it was featherweight time in Brazil versus France, as the last butt pirate, Morgan Charrier, went tit for tat with the vitiligo vigilante, Melky the Dalmatian Costa. 2 unranked 45ers, known for fun fights. Costa was riding a 4-fight win streak coming into Saturday night, make that 5 now, with most recently having defeated Julian Erosa back in May. Charrier was coming off of a win as well after TKOing Nate Landwehr in June. But as we know, only one of these guys could walk away with the dub and the continued momentum when they got it on. And on Saturday, when we turned the warehouse lights on, the warehouse quickly became the doghouse. It would take less than 101 seconds for the 102nd Dalmatian to plaster his shin across the cranium of Morgan Charrier, creeping ever closer and then connecting with a sneaky left roundhouse kick that sent the Frenchman reeling. The aftermath of which felt eerily reminiscent of Josh Thompson trying to recover from being kicked in the head by Yves Edwards way back in the day. People can go back and watch that, but it was the same sort of situation. You get kicked in just the right spot in the head. Josh has said it himself. He was fully aware of the situation and conscious, but you click that nerve off and the body just shuts down and you can't do fucking nothing about it. You could see it all over poor Morgan Charrier's face. So regardless, this KO at just 1:14 into the first round wraps up one hell of a year for Melquizael Costa, where he goes 4-0 with wins over touchy-feely Christian Rodriguez, Julian Erosa, and of course, Morgan Charrier. I also read that he chucked his cup into the crowd at the Apex, a la Derek Lewis, and he told the guy that caught it to drink from it. So it's a shame that the person that caught it wasn't Luana Santos, as I bet she loves Dalmatians. If you know, you'll know. Anyway, Danger Mouse, you are a dog lover, but not in a Santos or Izzy way.
No.
This young fellow with the spots, he's no joke. Those those who know will know, but he now jumps up to 6-2 in the UFC and is a quietly dangerous fighter in this featherweight division. What did you think of him making easy work of a French fighter here?
Yeah, he's nicknamed the Dalmatian. He's looking more golden Labrador these days, I think. He's only seems to have the one pack left to change. I was debating whether I should make a joke about him reaching his perfect form, but I don't know how that go down.
Jeez. Oh, God.
No, that's kind of it. I just didn't. Yeah, this fight was a kicking game to start and a kicking game to end with, as you said, Costa cracking his shin through Charrier's guard. And I presume he landed himself 50K. I haven't checked who got the awards at the moment. No follow-up needed, and absolute respect for Costa because he stepped over, took one look at him and went, "Nah, I don't need to. I'll just have a walk-off KO here. Thank you very much." And yeah, I thought this fight was going to go to a decision, and it managed to spice up what hadn't been a very good card so far. As you said, he's had 4 wins in 2025. Quite the year, fighter of the year, possible potential, really. He started the year with a submission of Andre Fili, a decision over Christian Rodriguez, and then a fight of the night performance, as you mentioned, against Julian Erosa, and then the cherry on top with this KO. If you want a non-champion fighter of the year, I don't think there's much argument here. I can't think of anyone else who's had 4 better fights this year. All I can really say is I wish I'd had him in the draft.
This is true.
Yeah, great performance. Yeah, what can you say? How long did it last? 74 seconds or whatever.
It's funny that you mentioned the draft there, because I was thinking sort of the same thing. And yeah. If that's all you got to say,
Fred, so
yeah, it was just, for me, it was just really nice to see Costa, who is typically known for kind of like walking through the fire to earn his victories, come out and just bulldoze a guy, which is not usually how he gets things done. So, especially somebody in a Charrier who really kind of has a style that is going to present a long night for a lot of guys at 145. So good on him for doing that. But let's round this one out.
I picked a decision for this one, sir. No, I'm saying I picked a decision for this one, sir.
Yeah, I think I did too. As I thought that
completely.
Yep, thought this was going to be a tough one. So let's round this one out though with Dave. It's been said by several people by now, a late entrant for knockout of the year contender. The look on Charrier's face as he's struggling to try to get up in the replay there is just the complete disconnect of the mind and body from that kick. So what did you think of the fight? And then, like Danger Mouse kind of pointed out there, what do you think of Melky Costa's potential as a 2026 JBR fantasy draft pick?
As far as the KO, I thought it was a really nice head kick, and a good KO. I'm not sure if I'd put it in the KO of the year category. Off the top of my head, I can't remember anything, but I seem to think this year there was like 4 or 5 times where I thought it was like, holy shit, that's a KO of the year, and this wasn't at that level for me. But it was a great performance. I'm not really too sure about him as a draft pick. Like, I'd be kind of worried, and I am kind of worried about picking someone that's been super active in 2025 to repeat it the next year.
Yeah, that didn't work well for me this year, so that's where I picked my pick on based last year. I've got a different strategy this year.
Like, I think sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. Like, Holland might have fought 4 times in a year, a couple of years in a row, but I'm not really sure. It's a dangerous thing, but I mean, if it's a dangerous game, the draft. So, I mean, if you're not willing to risk it, what are you even doing? So, and as far as the fight itself, it was a good fight. We didn't learn that much, except McQuizzle looks great. And I'd kind of like to see, I have a question for you. Is he going to get a shot at the top 15 at the rankings, or how close is he? I mean, we're going to see someone new in the top 15 tomorrow after the next fight.
I believe he should be ranked 15 after this fight.
Well, the other guy's probably going to get it. The guy that beat Giga, because Giga was 15. So.
No, right, I might be wrong.
Kevin Villegas beat Giga, and Giga was 15.
That might be what I was thinking of, yeah. I knew someone had said they'd beaten someone in the top 15.
So I don't know if I'd like match him with Kevin, because I don't know what they deserve as far as rankings ahead of them or whatnot. But I don't know. I'd kind of like to see him get a crack at the rankings.
I would have to agree with you, because it's kind of criminal, man, to be on a 4-fight win streak all within a year and to not be in the rankings when you have guys like we'll be getting to Giga Chikadze, who aren't the most active at all and are on losing streaks, and they still maintained and kept their rankings. Like, I know levels of competition may have been different, but consistency and activity and success has to count for something. So I would like to see him crack into the rankings. I think that he's deserving of it. I don't have the rankings in front of me, so I wouldn't know who to put him up against. I wouldn't know who to put him up against next or anything like that, but he's got to deserve it. He's got to deserve a crack at the fucking rankings.
Oh, what about like David Onama, or you got Dan Ige?
Yeah, I'd take like either 13. One of those.
Dan Ige at 13, David Onama at 14. Patricio Pitbull, he doesn't take a crack at 12. I don't think. Patricio Pitbull is 12, though.
No. But I could see him taking on an Ige. Or Ige's always up for a challenge like that. And that would be a fun scrap. Yeah. All right, well, from a fun scrap to a not so fun scrap, we will move on to the next one. And next up, it was time for our, I guess what you would call, or what's usually called the feature bout of the night, regrettably. One that would take place at 185 pounds. Two dudes with a 12-year age gap between them, but an odd 11-fight experience discrepancy going the way of the younger man. It was the debutante, brother of Michal, Cezary Oleksiejczuk, making his first appearance since securing his contract on this year's Dana White Contender Series. His opponent would be the former kickboxer turned MMA fighter, Brazil's Cesar Almeida. I see what you're doing here, Mick Maynard. A little wordplay on the names. And that wordplay may likely have been the most fun thing about this fight. Gone was the exciting guy who secured a quick finish on Contender, and instead we got a Polish national wrestling champion. Cezary took what amounted to the path of least resistance and grappled his way to a ridiculously boring decision victory. Phew. Congratulations, Dave. We are passing the microphone to you first for this one. Horrible, horrendous cesspit of a fight, but Oleksiejczuk does move up to 5 wins in a row. He wins his debut in the UFC, and he is still only 25 years old. So do you knock his stock at all from this boring performance?
I don't knock his stock at all, but it doesn't. His stock doesn't change at all. I mean, I don't know. Isn't his brother kind of like a fun, weird? Like he strikes more, and he kind of makes poor decisions, but he gets in fun kind of striking exchanges and stuff.
Exactly.
Like,
Very
so,
Kevin Holland.
You know, going into this fight expecting anything similar to that, I was like dead wrong. You know, I don't think anything. I didn't know anything about him about the fight, and I don't really care to know anything about him as of now. I don't want to research him or anything like that. I did find it was interesting. He was with the Fighting Nerds. I don't know if he's normally a wrestler, but you know, maybe he thought this guy's striking might be too much, and he used his Fighting Nerd brain power and the stat side to wrestle to get the win, and so he followed the game plan just to get the win. It was terrible to watch, or at least for my taste, it was almost everything I hate about mixed martial arts, but totally sucked the momentum out of the room. But you know, his stock doesn't change at all. But it doesn't really matter because this was his first fight in the UFC. He doesn't necessarily need a lot of hype. He just needs to put a couple wins together. So in the long run, if he continues winning, we're not even going to be thinking about it. Hopefully we're not going to be thinking about this, Lord willing.
That's true. I think those are several good points there because, you know, like you said, it's just the debut. This is going to be a fight that's going to long be in the rear view mirror once he strings a couple more together, and a win's a win at the end of the day. And that's a good point, pointing out the connection to the Fighting Nerds, because he may have appeared to be more like his brother Michal in his Contender Series fight, where he went out there and had a very quick finish in a fast kind of barn burner of a fight. But that Fighting Nerds influence could have had an effect on this, and that could be very well why he went the smarter, safer, easier route here. And I don't know. I mean, I'm no fighter. I'm not in there, you know, with a former like K1 kickboxer potentially winging shots at my head. I might have done the same thing for all I know. Fuck. I can't blame the guy. But yeah, Danger Mouse. You know, I'm not going to ask or expect you to break the internet with your analysis here. But hit us with any takeaways or whatever observations you may have on this middleweight shitfest.
The first thing I noticed was the two Caesars. That was literally the first thing I spotted. And I was like, I wonder if that's ever happened before. So I checked on Grok, and only once has it happened, and that was only once of two fighters with a derivation of Caesar. appeared on the same card, and notably they fought each other, and of course that was last night. So yeah, that's arguably the most interesting fact about the entire fight. Best moment of the fight, arguably, was the first takedown by Oleksiejczuk. He slipped into crucifix, and then he just maintained ground control for the rest of that round. Did have some funny shoulder strikes that I'm guessing they were quite annoying. And then it was just more of the same, really. There was slightly more striking in the second round, but it was just get to the ground, maybe a little bit of a exchange of position there, but not for the most part. And I thought this was going to be a banger of a fight. I think I picked a first round KO. Can't remember exactly. And judging by the commentary team, I wasn't on my own and judging from you guys, I wasn't on my own in expecting a scrap and maybe an exciting finish. But that's neither here nor there. It is what it is, or rather, it was what it was. A very clear winning performance. Oleksiejczuk controlling Almeida on the ground for over half the fight. As clear a 30-27 as you're likely to see if you didn't fall asleep in the middle of it, that is. I am so glad I did not stay up all night for this card. That's all I can really say on this fight. Yeah, you won. Well done. No one's going to remember it. And in a few fights, if you have a few exciting wins, people will forget it completely.
Bit of foreshadowing for Rate the Card later on, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move it along, and we're going to move along like this. Because, guys, as a man once said, I suppose that our capacity for self-delusion is boundless. Featherweight co-main event time, and a number 15 ranking would be on the line, as ranked but barely ranked Giga Chikadze came back to make the walk after 8 months away, and looking to bounce back off of 2 losses in a row. Chasing the number next to his name was the young and hungry Argentinian scrapper, Kevin Vallejos. Lots of glaring differences between these two. A 13-year age gap, a 5-inch height difference, a 6-inch reach differential. One hadn't won since 2023, and the other hadn't lost since 2023. Trends be trending, because both of these streaks continued on their respective trajectories. Following a hotly contested first round that would see Chikadze likely edging out the youthful RG, we would head into a second that quickly changed momentum. Pressing and herding Giga against the fence and pinning him behind the tram line, Vallejos would uncork a violent whirlwind, spinning back fist that connected flush, dropping the Georgian. A couple of cruel follow-up shots would follow, but by then it was just academic. The first time in the 21 pro MMA fights that Giga had been finished danger, and there was nothing to argue about with the stoppage. At 37 years old, age is certainly starting to become a factor here, although the kicks are fast and vicious as ever. Despite a check tick that left a bullet hole in his shin, Chikadze kept throwing them. Let us get your take on the co-main event, and what do you think about the most obvious thing ever in sending Giga to karate combat? He's on a 3-fight losing streak, and he's nearly 40.
I've got a strange sense of deja vu. That check where just I looked up and I was like, what the hell? He's just gushing blood from his shin. And I wasn't sure who'd won that first round, to be honest. And I think everyone actually gave it to Giga, but it really didn't matter. 2 straight rights, spinning back fist that sent Chikadze crashing to the floor. And I don't know if you noticed, but Vallejos was actually fast enough to catch him with a left hook before he even hit the floor. And then, as you said, a couple of pounded elbows, that was it, game over. Fun call out, I guess, at the end, calling out Cub Swanson, who I believe was in Giga's corner. Which I don't know. He didn't fight at all this year, so I doubt we'll see that one. You never know, though. The Cubs always up for a brawl. What else did you ask me? I'm sure you asked me something. I had something in mind.
It's karate combat. Is it time for Giga to do the obvious?
Yeah. Why not? Yeah, it could be fun there. He's certainly not going to win any titles in the UFC, but he might win one there. He's that right kind of fighter. Loves to kick. Yeah, why not?
He's fucking built for it, man. I mean, like I said, 40 years old, which he's pushing. 40 years old is their prime age bracket down at karate combat.
Exactly, yeah. He might be fighting Stephen Thompson one day in the future. You never know.
Yeah, and he's still fast with the kicks. The kicks are still lightning quick.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He was painting Kevin up no end. Quite literal in some cases.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the call out of Cub Swanson too, and Cub being in the corner of Giga. A lot of people kind of shitting on the call out of Cub Swanson here, but it's kind of an inside baseball thing. I was pointing this out last night. Cub Swanson is the head coach of Bloodline MMA, where Giga has been doing a lot of his training. Giga and Cub fought previously. Giga kind of took admiration and respect for Cub after their fight, decided to go train with them. And Cub had kind of been talking a lot of shit on Vallejos leading up to this fight. So that I don't think that he necessarily really wants to fight Cub Swanson. I think that was more or less his opportunity while Cub was there in attendance to kind of talk some shit back and be like, hey, bud, you want to fucking go? Look what I just did to your boy. Like, we can do this too. But yeah, so Dave, what do you say? This is a big time win for Kevin Vallejos, who is still so young that he could be on an Epstein list without the sex. He's got a fun style. He's dangerous, and he's only getting better. So, do you think that Giga regrets telling Kevin's coach to shut the fuck up at weigh-ins when coach shouted that Argentinians have better striking? What do you think?
No. I think Giga had the better striking. I just think the better striking isn't always the more effective striking in MMA circumstances. I thought Giga pretty clearly won round one. I mean, it was a good fight. They were both landing, but I clearly gave it to Giga. I mean, Kevin's stomach was all purple, and granted, part of it was from blood, but even before that, it was getting purple from so many body kicks, but, he kind of no-sold all of them. I did notice in round one, Kevin threw like that same spinning back fist, but like only the knuckle of the glove caught Giga. And my initial thought was like, oh shit, that looked hard, but Giga just like no-sold it. But then in the second round, he ended up throwing like the same thing, and Giga was looking good before that. I mean, he did get kind of, Kevin had a nice combo, and Giga was like, oh, what? And then he gets hammered with the spinning back fist. This time, much more, like almost the forearm area kind of landed with the fist. And so there's a lot more impact area, and it just shut him down. But, I thought besides that, Giga looked good. Just his chin failed him, and I'm not saying he would have won the fight, but he won round one. I don't understand why he's in the rankings. I do like him. I think he's a fun fighter. But, it's time for him to not be in the rankings and Kevin to take his place. About the Cub call out, regardless of his reasons, one thing is he was super duper respectful about Giga. And he's like, I'm going to give him some money towards this charity that he runs. And then when he called Cub out, he was like super duper respectful. Like, Cub might have talked shit about him, but and maybe he's being weird, but like he was like super nice about it, talking about how Cub's a legend and stuff. So, maybe he didn't think that Cub was retired, or maybe, he thought that, he's the type of scrap that Cub would be willing to come back for. Or maybe it was all just because, Cub talking shit. If Cub's talking shit, I think he's kind of too old to be doing that. So maybe Kevin deserves to put a little beating on him, because when you're my age, I don't think it's becoming for an old man to be like talking shit like he's a. But a hell of a fight. Good for Kevin. The biggest fail about calling out Cub is going backwards in the rankings. Like, he's going to be 15 now. He should be looking forward, man. But he's an exciting fighter. I can't wait to see what's next. Good shit.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to point out that it was the 6th spinning finish we'd had this year. 4 spinning elbows, 2nd spinning back fist.
Yeah. The year of the spinner chinners, as I've been calling them, spinner chinners.
Yeah.
Vallejos, he does deserve a lot of credit here, because to be the first guy to ever put out Giga, a striker in MMA, and you're only 24 years old, that's impressive. And also, if people will remember, Vallejos is the guy that took John Silva to a decision on the Contender Series. Really kind of showed his levels early on in that fight. And only getting better since then. Sky's the limit. Has always and probably will always draw comparisons to Ilya Taporia due to the body frame and things of that nature in the fighting style. So if he can replicate the success of an Ilya Taporia, we could be looking at a future title challenger. And again, this is another one of those guys that might want to keep an eye on for the JBR fantasy draft.
Never know. I'm not sure I can pick an Argentinian in the draft.
I can.
Pick him for the fight, but not sure I can pick him in the draft.
All right. Well, we got a couple of guys next up that you could probably pick in the draft because, gentlemen, here we are, the final fight of the final card on ESPN, your flyweight main event of the evening. We started on this network with the Fly Guys, and we'll end with them too. Number 3 clashing with number 6, the Raw Dog versus the Starboy, Brandon Royval versus Manel Kape. Two men who share many similarities despite what one may think. Both men veterans of 25 or more pro fights, 33 and 32 years old respectively, both having debuted in 2012. Despite a 4-inch difference in height, they shared an identical 68-inch reach. Both 3-2 in their last 5 fights, one fighting out of Factory X and the other Extreme Couture. But this would be an exacting beatdown no sooner than he's finally able to really put hands on him. Manel puts the Raw Dog down, and then he puts him out again, and maybe again. With titties heaving and swaying more than we had seen since the likes of Steven Asplin, Kape wrapped things up with time still left on the clock in the first. Perhaps more entertaining than the fight itself was the post-fight interview, as is often the case with Manel, where he would warn flyweight champion Joshua Van that he was coming to take his diapers alive.
Now, baby, hey, listen very well. I'm here, your daddy. Your dad is gonna take your diapers alive on a new deal, Paramount deal. I'm gonna take your diapers alive.
We're gonna go to you for Dave, maybe you know something about taking diapers alive. I don't know, but we're gonna go to you first here. We're gonna go to you and your twisted mind for this main event. Crazy set of circumstances here at 125, really. And they're all set off by the injury to Pantoja and the subsequent title loss. We kind of touched on it on the show last week, but flyweight really finds itself in a fortunate situation with an overload of talent at a time when they really need it the most. Tyra sort of stepped up to the front of the line of the contenders by finishing Brandon Moreno. Then Kape kind of outdid him by cleanly putting out Brandon Royval on Saturday night. And now Kyoji Horiguchi, who has a chance to really throw his name into the hat if he can wipe out Amir Albazi in February. So who do you think should get the next title shot while Pantoja heals up?
I don't know, man. It's so tough. For my first, flyweight is so stacked right now. It's like, I mean, I wouldn't argue if they gave the, I think he's got the fight booked, but I wouldn't argue if they gave it to the winner of Kyoji versus Albazi. I mean, I don't know. I think Manel Kape called him out with that terrible call out, and I think Van said let's go. So it might not matter who I want next. Like,
Yeah.
Manel might have called a shot and got it, and I don't hate it. My dream would have been Kyoji to get the next title shot, but he's got that other fight now. So if Van wants to stay active, why not Kape? Kape's actually probably a better fight than Tyro for Van. I don't know. Yeah, I think I'd rather see Kape versus Van.
See, and that just goes to show you right there just how fun of a mix-up and a screwed-up situation this is, because it sucks to have Pantoja go out like that, but man, this really made this division fun. There's a lot going on, but next matchup aside, what did you think of the fight? What did you think of how this went down?
I thought it was a really fun fight for as long as it lasted. I mean, Royval had a couple unusual moments where he kind of like slipped or something, and there was like something going. I don't know if he had like an issue with his leg, but it didn't really matter. Kape just looked like the superior striker in there, and just kind of went and, for the most part, almost did whatever he wanted. He switched his stance effectively a lot, and he just fought really sharp, and he looked like a champion level fighter. I went back and looked at his record, and most of his losses are only to like legends, except there's like Mateus Nicolau or something crazy that he lost to. But he's a really elite fighter, and last night he proved it. He does have that loss to Makayev, but I'm not even sure. I don't know how I scored that fight, but I don't think I really held that against Kape too much. But he looked great last night. I didn't expect Royval to get finished. I expected his boxing to work a lot better, but the kickboxing of Kape just too much. Great performance. I think he might have tied the record. It'd be close to the second record for knockout wins at flyweight with like this might have been his fifth knockout in the division. So I used to have the stigma about the little guys not being able to knock each other out and having power, but I haven't thought that for a few years. But this just goes to show that the little guys can be exciting and get stoppages. And good performance. Can't wait to see what's next. And he's fun. Fun call out.
Yeah,
good shit. Sucks for Royval. I love Royval, but he's young, but I feel like he's almost had his time at the top, and he's gonna kind of become the gatekeeper 5 to 10 guy after this.
Yeah, Manel did indeed tie Joseph Benavidez for the most knockouts in UFC flyweight history with 5 last night. He also tied Atiba Gautier, Michael Morales, and Azamat Murzakanov, and Ilia Topuria for the longest active UFC knockout streaks with 3 consecutive KOs in a row. So from a flyweight, you love to see it. Very nice to see from the small guys, especially from Manel Kape, who, if you remember, it was the funniest thing when he came over from Ryzen. He was bitching that he couldn't throw with the same punching power because he didn't have the shoes that he was able to wear in Ryzen. And he's he couldn't find his footing in the bare feet, so he must have found his footing. I guess he's found his footing by now.
Looks that way.
Yeah, it was a really fun fight. So we'll go to you, Danger Mouse, for this final word on this final main event on the final card of the UFC on ESPN era. We started this broadcast deal with the flyweights. We end it with the flyweights. Both fights ending, get this, via first round finish. Serendipity. So what's your view on the brief bit of fight that we did get to see? And going forward, who do you think is the rightful number 1 contender at 125? Or who would you just like to see the most get the next title shot?
Okay. Fairly short and sweet from me, which Manel Kape is one of those things, but not the other, I would say. The first thing I have to say on this is fuck MMA Guru, because I had picked Kape by decision, by KO, sorry. Admittedly, round 3, I didn't think he'd get it done in 1, and then I listened to Guru, and he persuaded me to go to a Royval decision. And that's actually, if I'd have done that pick, I would have won the Topology League again this week. I'll just give a quick shout out, actually. Babylon Judge, who came first. No idea who that is. Get yourself in the Discord, and we'll find out. John Ray MMA came second, and myself and Crossover came in equal third. So, yeah, that was it. Lazy Dan in his 6th place. If you
God damn. Jesus.
Still be better than Dave. I mean, a very, very short violent fight.
Just to interject, getting every fight wrong is pretty goddamn impressive.
You definitely didn't get every fight wrong. You scored 400. You got, in fact, 5 correct, according to Topology.
Humbug.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic by KO by Kape. I'm not sure if he'll get a shot at Van, because I did see some footage of Pantoja training, and he was lifting weights with his injured arm. So don't know how long he's going to be out. We'll see eventually. And I've just taken a quick look at the rankings and see how I'd go for. I think Tyra deserves it, but we all know it's the UFC, and deserve ain't got nothing to do with it. Honestly, yeah, I if I'm going to see a fight, I wouldn't mind seeing these two, because it's going to be a stand-up brawl. It'd be a fun fight. They've both got knockout power in their hands, so yeah, why not? That'd be fun. Yeah, more fun than the likely grappling match it'll be against Tyra. Not that I hate Tyra in any way. I don't blame him. If I was fighting Pantoja, the last thing I'd want to do is stand up and exchange fists with him.
Yeah.
So yeah, if they're going to do a fun fight, yeah, why the hell not? We're in the new era of the UFC, as we've kept saying all night long, and they want exciting fights to get new subscribers. So yeah, throw it up and let Pantoja have whoever holds onto it or gets a belt afterwards.
Yep.
And if it doesn't, if say Kape wins and then Pantoja has to beat Kape, he can always give Van another shot, because he'll want to get that fight back, I would imagine. So one way or the other, I guess Van will end up getting another title shot fairly quickly if he loses it.
It's very much like Jed Meshew always says. There's no wrong way to eat this Reese's. They found themselves in a situation where any decision they make for the next contender has either storylines, meritocracy standards, or excitement value. Like whether they go Kape, Tyra, or Horiguchi, we're looking at fun fights. You could put any one of those fights in Japan or Singapore, which they've already talked about. Or, like Dave kind of pointed out, Van apparently seems to have already accepted the challenge of Manel Kape from last night and said Houston, Texas, which is coming up, Joshua Van's hometown, Houston, Texas, let's run it. He wants Manel down in Houston. So, hey, man, the division's in a great place. I would say flyweight probably the healthiest it's ever been. The most parity it's ever seen. So great time to be a fan of 125 pounds, smaller guy MMA. Great time for it. All right. Well, for the sake of time, we are going to move things along rather quickly. Not too quickly though, because while you may have thought we were finished, you ain't getting off that easy. I'm making you sit through the prelims just like I did, at least a few of them. We covered the main card and did so in jest. Now it's time for the best of the rest. Danger Mouse, our daring mouse, hit the bleeders with your favorite preliminary fight, if you have one. Just one. Let's hear it.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot on there that I enjoyed overly much. I'm going to have to go, I think, with my one fight on the entire card that I picked absolutely correctly. I picked it by a first round submission, and I'm, of course, talking about Yaroslav Amosov defeating Neil Magny. And of course, choke. This was actually one that I'll go back to Guru again. He actually suggested this one was going to go to a decision, and I took one look at Amosov's stats and went, no fucking way. So yeah, I ignored him on that one. Should have done it on the main event. But yeah, amazing, great performance. One of these guys who's come up from Bellator, lost, I believe, one of his recent fights. UFC could have had him at like 26-0 or something like that. But yeah, destroyed Neil Magny in no time at all. Very nice job.
Indeed. And this was the fight that actually I was touching on earlier that had some movement on the card, was slated to be in one spot on the prelims, then got moved a fight or two later into the feature prelim spot, the final prelim of the night. And at one point, this fight was discussed as potentially being off. There was some back and forth going on. I had heard from some people that Amosov's translator and manager got pulled into the office at the Apex. There was some sort of a discussion that went on. People were saying the fight wasn't going to happen. Then it got moved. The reason for that, I don't know. It could have been contractual. Could have been something physical. Who's to say? Who's to check? Not going to speculate, but big win in the debut for Yaroslav Amosov, who is an injection of even more talent and fun into this welterweight division. So yeah, that was a very nice selection.
I've just got one quick thing to just jump in with there. I just checked who got the bonuses for last night's fights, and Melky Costa did not get a bonus. You cheap ass bitch, Dana White. Get your fucking hand in your pocket. Write that man a check.
Yeah, really. All right, let's go to Dave next. Dave, there can only be one. Give us your solitary, singular selection for the best of the rest.
It's got to be Jamie Lynn Horth versus Teresa Bleda. It felt sacrilegious not to go with the Bleda.
This is reincarnation of Austin.
Well, yeah, also reincarnation of Austin, got to go with Blades, but also a hell of a performance I picked against Horth. I like Bleda, but Horth just went in there and punched her up quick and fucking hit like a hammer, and hell of a win. Good job, Jamie Lynn Horth.
Yeah. I don't know why the fuck Bleda was a big favorite coming into this fight, because she had been off, if I'm not mistaken, for like 2 years, like 2+ years she hadn't fought. It was some crazy amount of time. And Jamie Lynn Horth, while not the best fighter, has at least been active, and she's a big hoss of a woman. So yeah, that was a.
She did just Bleda last night. So.
Yeah, for all the Bledas out there.
Yeah,
you can, they say you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make her drink. This time we did. All right. Yeah. Crickets. I guess I'll just give my quick mention to Titties 2.0. Stephen Asplin, Concrete. Everyone knows the story. Fun guy, used to be 500 pounds, lost like 250 pounds. Now he's got the saggy skin. May or may not have had a skin reduction. Said he wanted to suck Dana White's toes on the Contender Series. Went viral for that. Just he's a sloppy ass heavyweight, but he's a heavyweight that's got fantastic cardio, which isn't something we see very often. I believe he set the record last night for most strikes by a heavyweight, or he tied the record or something along the lines in a 3-round fight. And he did so in even less time than the previous record holder. Just kind of a volume striker, a la a Diaz brother, which you don't see at heavyweight, but has the ability to finish fights as well. So fun guy with a fun gimmick, and did get the bonus for fight of the night. And poor Sean Sharaf, his opponent, was beat to fucking shit. Maybe I'll find the pictures that Dana White posted, but he was fucking cut to pieces. All right, well, that's going to just about do it for the best of the rest.
Yeah, I would have shouted out Stephen out, but he didn't get it done in the first round as I predicted. So
fucked you out of that perfect fucking score.
Yeah.
All right, well, what do you guys say now we stop and smell our own farts for a minute? Because we've come to the end of this very special, very important, incredible event that we'll always remember. And now we must do but one thing. We got to rate that card. And with the honor of going first to rate this final ESPN event, our very own Super Dave. But hold on. Here comes the swerve. I actually want you to do two things, Dave. I'd like you to rate that card, as we always do, but I'd also like you to grade that era. Give us your typical 1 to 10 rating for Fight Night Royval vs. Kape, and then give us a grade for the UFC's run on ESPN.
Okay, starting off with my gymnastics type scoring, I'm going to start off giving the card a 8, but you have to take away 3 points for Cesar Almeida versus Cesar Olekchechuk or whatever. So we're down to a 5, but then we're going to give it 2 points for some weird reason that Austin would come up with, and we're going to give it a 7. Yeah, 7.
The good old flat 7.
Yeah.
What the fuck? All right. Well, now that you know the shtick, I'm going to ask the same of you, Danger Mouse. Let's. Oh wait, Dave, you didn't give a.
Oh wait! I forgot to rate the era or grade the era.
Yeah, great.
I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna give the era as a whole A, and I'm gonna give.
Jeez.
Well, the including the fights, all the action, everything, just the sport as a whole. Like a lot of stuff's changed, but they're always delivering good fights, and they're giving us lots of them. Get in and just getting rid of pay-per-views, possibly. I'm not sold on it yet, but if they do, that kind of really hypes me up, and I've just enjoyed it. So as an era, I'd have to give it an A, but as far as the streaming service and ESPN, I'd give it a F minus.
Yeah, I was gonna say for me that's a big part of the era, but nevertheless, Danger Mouse. Now that you know the shtick, as I said, I'm gonna ask the same of you. Let's hear your thoughts and rating for the card we just watched, and then after, tell us your summary and report card grade for the era that was UFC on ESPN.
Okie dokie. For the card itself, I already said I'm so glad I did not stay up all night. I would have been so bitter this morning; it would have been unbelievable. I'm just looking at the card now. I've got it in front of me. I'm going to ignore the prelims because they were, apart from one fight, just decisions all the way through. We had the 3 great finishes on the main card, but that took up less than a round. And then the rest of however long this card ran for was a lot of boring, sloppy decisions, the weird draw, which again, already said, don't mind the draw, like that decision. So I have, for the last 3 weeks, I've given out really, really generous scores. And guess what? I'm not going to do that this week. I think we'll have to give it. It was very average, so I'm going to give it a 5, and because it's the last fight of 2025, I'll give it a 5.25.
Quick thing, I'm taking away a point for the 4-minute long commercials that aired all the time that I forgot about.
That's
so
6.
I'm at a 6 now.
Okay,
Yeah.
that seems fair.
All right,
And for
yeah,
my
give your grade.
grading of the era, I don't think I could be quite as generous as Dave, although I have enjoyed it. There's been enough of mess ups, dull cards, cock ups, when main events have gone missing occasionally, I think this year or the last few years. So very nice and simple. I will give it a B minus.
Yeah.
Could do better, but not bad.
I'm glad I made you guys both go first. Give me kind of the time to think and summarize my thoughts. Because about the card, you guys are both right. There was a lot of malarkey on this event. It felt extremely long. It felt like this card drug on forever, and that's partly because they stuck it on in the pay-per-view time slot, which it was so stupid for an Apex event. Thankfully, this old pay-per-view time slot will be going away. There will no longer be this 7 p.m. prelim and 10 p.m. main card start time. But there was Saturday night. That sucked. It was a very like peaks and valleys card. The fights with finishes were pretty fun, and they were pretty like high energy. The fights without finishes were so slow, such slogs, not enjoyable. A lot of different fighters that I'll look forward to seeing again, and a lot of fighters that I will not. So basically what I'm saying is they kind of balanced itself out as like a very middle of the road at best card. Dave did 5.25. Or no, Dave did 6. Danger Mouse, you did 5.25. Let me just stick myself roundabout in the middle. I'll go 5.75 for the card. It was not very good, even with the fun finishes. So that's a bad rap for the final card of the ESPN era. And to put a grade on the ESPN era, I gotta be equally as harsh because it was full of a lot of bullshit. It was full of tough times and tough sledding, streaming on ESPN Plus, buffering, events dropping out, inability to order pay-per-views, people losing money, wasting money, always being behind everyone else's stream that's using any other service. Just so many problems with ESPN Plus itself. And then not only that, but not utilizing their full potential as like the leading sports broadcast channel in the world. We never really got like the best statistics or behind the scenes breakdowns or nothing like that. Like it just always felt like they did the bare minimum. And I feel like it was being on ESPN and all the shit that came with it that led us into this new world of the UFC where, like I said, it's about making as many business partnerships as they can and getting as much board of tourism deals and site fees as they can. It's not for us anymore, man. They're just putting on fights and they're trying to make as much money as they can. So this era, I feel like, sucked the life out of the sport in the end. I feel like the UFC on ESPN kind of fucked the sport. Not a fan of it. Yeah, I'm going along here, but I'm going to give it a C plus. I'll give it a C plus overall. I could be harsher, but I won't.
I was hovering between a C plus and a B minus.
I mean, there's so much to say. We could do a whole Sunday night scuffle on it, so we'll just wrap it at that. But in wrapping, fellas and listeners, that is all she wrote. With that, we will end on a quote because it wasn't all good, but it wasn't all bad. And we did it to the extremes. We were balls to the wall for the last 6 years, and I can only hope that we're balls to the wall for 6 more. All show long, I've been slipping in quotes from an author that, for whatever reason, came to me as inspiration for this show's script. And I'd like to close with another of his lines as JBR's capstone of the UFC's run on ESPN. And as my cat smacks around a ball. And the quote, it goes a little bit something like this. I have always lived violently, drunk hugely, eaten too much or not at all, slept around the clock or missed 2 nights of sleeping, worked too hard and too long in glory, or slobbed for a time in utter laziness. I've lifted, pulled, chopped, climbed, made love with joy, and taken my hangovers as a consequence, not as a punishment. That's how I'd like to remember this era. We took the lumps, we did some bumps, and we did it all in stride. And we partied like no tomorrow along the way. So cheers to ESPN, and here's the new horizons. We got plenty on the horizon for all of you. The 2026 JBR Fantasy Draft, a UFC 324 preview show. Who knows what other kind of stocking stuffers we have in store, which means that you better keep it locked to Just Bleed Radio during the holiday season for all of your non-denominational, mutually inclusive mixed martial arts needs. Join the Tapology, link in the description, pound the like, sub to the channel. I need a Bing rip. Say goodbye to whoever's still listening.
Bye, guys. Have a nice Christmas.
Goodbye, guys. I'll probably talk to you, or these guys might talk to you before Christmas. So.
Yeah, that's very likely, to be fair. I'm sure we'll think of something to do in the future. At the very least, we've got a draft upcoming. So.
Sure do. And we'll do a preview.
Oh, there might be a list.
Oh, yes. Naughty or nice. Naughty or nice. Oh, thank God that's over.
Austin.
Fuck you, Austin.
Did we close the... Oh, yeah, so the show's closed.
Yeah, we're done.
Okay.
Coming to take you diapers.
Danger Mouse.
I think we lost.
I heard the bell.
Oh no, shit! I was muted. I just missed the entire thing.
Dude, hold on. Give me the goddamn ball, you little bastard. I gotta get to submission radio. You're slowing me down. All right, I'm back. One more time.
Oh yeah, I can hear that now. Juniper.
Lazy.
Who's the check?
Shout out to Laura Sanko's outfit.
I didn't see what she was wearing.
She looks spiffy.
Did you?
I'm pretty sure I had that same tie.